What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new F1 2020 video. Today we are going to be racing on the controller and we are going to see just how easy or how hard it is to be fast on the F1 2020 game. Now, this was, I don't know, I kind of wanted to do a wheel versus controller video anyway, but now my hand has been forced because my wheelbase literally won't connect to my PC anymore. And yeah, I had to switch to the pad for today's video and possibly for future videos for today and tomorrow. I am getting another wheelbase sent to me tomorrow, so hopefully this isn't too much of a inconvenience, but this is going to be an interesting video nonetheless. I have seen a couple other people's videos, like TRL Limitless, for example. He has been worried that the controller might be too easy on this year's game. However, it might be a little bit too early to read into things because this isn't the full game. Handling can still be tweaked, so too can, I don't know, various elements to do with handling inputs or device inputs. So, I'll make this video, but do take it with a pinch of salt because this isn't the full game. So here we are. This is my very first lap on the controller. And as you can see, before we even start the lap is over because I ran off the track and... yeah, there's obviously going to be a bit of a learning curve to this. So, yeah, excuse my driving because, you know, I haven't really raced on a pad in about 10 years. I used to be a pad player back on F1 2010. So I know I have the skill to make it work, but the muscle memory is long gone. So I'm going to try, I sweated the pad for like half a day. I think I was on the game for about 2 hours here, just trying to get competitive. And by the end of this video, we actually are pretty good. We do start to challenge, you know, the likes of TRL Limitless. So we have quite the progression. But you guys will have to go through all the suffering with me, as I did, to get there. And I feel like there's a lot of good lessons to be learned from this, especially if you're a controller player, because you can perhaps iron out some issues that you're having on the controller as well. So yeah, the biggest thing I was struggling with was the trail braking, just holding the brake as we head into a braking zone, obviously. The throttle was probably one of the easiest things for me to manage. I think managing the throttle and being progressive with that was the thing that came to me first. My steering was still very twitchy, and so too was my, you know, brake trigger control. So yeah, it takes a bit of time to get used to. Turn 1 and 2, the first chicane, that was probably the hardest part of the circuit for me because there's a lot that you have to do in such a short space of time. You have to, absolutely have to nail the braking for turn 1, first thing, turn in at the right point, and then you've got to get the car turned in and brake again slightly for the second part of the chicane, as well as getting on the power nice and early. There's a lot to hook up there, which you kind of take for granted on the wheel. I am running with no assist as well, by the way, just for those who are potentially wondering. But I think this is my first clean lap, I want to say. Best lap so far is, I don't even know what it is. I think it was a 21 or something. But the likes of TRL Limitless, who is at the top of the leaderboard, he's done an 18.8, I believe. And so too has Eye Contrast. Both of those guys separated by literally nothing. Eye Contrast is on the controller. So that says to me, because those two are so closely matched at the top of the table, I'd say that that's their genuine pace. And so it's going to be my job to try and get as close as I can. Our best time is at 20.3, but it's invalidated. So it doesn't really count. But if I can get a clean lap in, and it's within a second of, say, JD and Eye Contrast, then I'd be very happy with that, especially given that I don't have any muscle memory with a controller anymore. That says to me that, you know, it might be relatively easy, in a way, to pick up the controller and be competitive. So, first clean lap on the board gets us 4th on the leaderboards, 1.3 seconds away from Eye Contrast and Limitless. But we can easily get into the 19s for sure. So that's what we're going to endeavor to do now as we head on for another lap. There's a lot of places I can definitely nail a little bit better. Turn 1 is the big one. The second part of that chicane, just touching that curb, just pushes the nose out wide, and that was stuffing me up so much over the course of all these attempts. You actually want to really mount the first part of the curve to open up the second part of the chicane. And, you know, my accuracy is just nowhere. It's not going to be anywhere near as good as what it is on the wheel. With the wheel, I can just about put it exactly where I want to go. But the trouble with the pad and not having the muscle memory is I know what needs to be done. It's just I can't do it with my hands. It's really annoying. That's a 19.8, but again, invalidated. We will push again to see what we can get. But we're 12 laps into this session. And, you know, things are starting to come to me now. I'm starting to get a better feel of the controller. I will say it is a lot harder to be precise because you're working with a narrower window of input, if that makes sense. So with a trigger, you don't have to press the trigger down very far to get to full throttle, and same too with the brake. So you really have to have experience and muscle memory to know exactly how much throttle you want to put, just to make those tiny, minute little inputs that'll make the difference. And that's how you make up, you know, those tenths of a second that separate, you know, a really good, well, just a wheel player from a really good pad player. But 4 tenths up so far on this lap. I think this is actually my best lap of the entire day. The best clean lap I've done. I did many more better invalidated laps, but frustratingly, I did this time really early on. I think I did up to about 30 laps here, but this is my best clean one, annoyingly enough. But we come across the line, and it's a 19.5. That puts us within a second of JD and I contrast, which is exactly where we wanted to be. So this was about 15 minutes in, 20 minutes, something like that. And we were able to get a time like that. So, I don't know, in relative terms, I feel like it's somewhat easy, to be on the pace with a controller. But the problem is, it's not easy to be consistent. So, you know, when you can get the stars aligned and everything, it's fine. But the problem is in a race scenario or just trying to be consistent, or if there's tire wear, whatever, it is very, very hard to be consistently fast on the controller. And that's where I was suffering. But when I nailed it, when I got it right, I was like, oh, this feels pretty good, you know, sometimes. But now we are up against TRL Limitless's Ghost. And now I'm going to directly compare how I'm driving up against him. This is a really nice run through the first chicane. And look at that. We're 2.5, nearly 3 tenths up. We're actually in front of TRL Limitless's Ghost car. So when I nailed it, I out-tractioned a wheel player. And for reference, JD is better than me on the wheel. So in theory, I mean, that would be difficult enough for me to do on the wheel, you know? But I've done it on a pad. That's what's scary about that right there. But as the lap unfolds, you can see my muscle memory isn't as good. I did turn one a lot, so that was probably the one corner I probably could nail sometimes, but nailing the whole lap, you know, that's where I need buckets and buckets of hours of experience in order to nail that. And you can see it's all starting to unravel and fall apart now. But the potential is there. And I guess that's what JD is talking about, because not only is this game, you know, easier on traction, but JD thinks that the controller might potentially have too much traction, because there is potentially some softening of the throttle, like a little bit of a traction assist kind of in a way for the controller. I can see what he means there, you know, which is fine for, you know, the casual players and for, you know, people like me who's just picking up the pad for the first time. But this can become problematic when you've got really capable controller players in league racing, or dare I say it, even trying to go for F1 esports. Then we've got a problem. You know, the likes of New Zealand Ryan and VSR Syra, or whatever his name is. Those are the kind of people that JD is worried about, that are going to run away with competitive league racing in the upcoming year potentially. But I don't know, who knows? It's, like I said, it's still very early days, so we can't go saying, oh, we can't be making bold claims just yet. But the fact that I was able to pick up a pad and, you know, sometimes be faster than JD out of some corners, ooh. But I don't know. Who knows? We won't truly know until we see the full game. But I will say it was bloody hard. And I did 30 laps on the controller trying to go hell for leather, and, you know, more often than not for me, it came up, you know, being, you know, absolute pie in the face kind of thing. Here, we managed to get in front of JD in the Lesmo, but that was more because I rushed the corner. I am starting to nail more parts of the circuit and getting closer to his pace, but doing it cleanly, that is the trouble. Yeah, just accuracy still isn't there. I'm getting better with the modulation of the throttle and the brake. I'm starting to really trail brake a lot better. One thing I was doing early on, for the first 15, 20 laps, was when I was braking, I was just braking with 100% pressure. But then I started to ease off the brake pressure a little bit and was braking at 80, 90%. And I actually found I was stopping a little bit more quickly. Obviously, because you don't want to be locking up. But, you know, I was slowly starting to get there. And it got to a point where I was starting to overdrive. And then I was getting frustrated and a bit fatigued in a way. So if I come back to this, I could definitely get a lot closer. I reckon I could do like a low 19 quite easily. But I just need more time, and I wanted to get this video out for you guys today. So this is, you know, my updated standing of where everything is. But I will say, something that really helped when I was driving on the controller is, at least on the Xbox One controller I was using, is I was getting force feedback through the, or vibration through the triggers. And that was really, really helpful. I eventually started to pick up on that, and that's how I knew just to ease off the brake pressure a little bit as I was approaching a corner, because yeah, the brake trigger was rattling, and I just ease off slightly and I'd stop even better. Little things like that. So too with the throttle trigger, is I knew I was getting wheel spin like straight away because the trigger was vibrating. That's something you don't get on most wheel setups, is your pedals, they don't vibrate. And so for a wheel user, you could potentially be making that mistake for hours and hours and hours and hours, whereas on the controller I was able to pick up on that very, very quickly. So any wheel makers out there, please add vibration to your pedals. That would make a world of difference. But we're getting towards the end of the session here. Again, still trying to push the limits. I made many, many mistakes, and we got to about lap 30. We're past the point of a 50% Grand Prix, and I'm like, all right, enough's enough. This is going to be the last lap that we do. If we win it or bin it, you know, that's it. We're going to call it a day there. But you can see not a great run out of the first chicane. You know, it's not a good run when I'm not beating my previous personal best, which was set about an hour before this one now. So the frustration is well and truly kicking in. Second chicane there. We dip a wheel in the grass, just like my last Ghost personal best. We're still up on it a little bit. Run wide at the first Lesmo, and I think that's game over. So there we go, guys. That is my first experience with the controller on F1 2020. You know, for the competitive guys out there who are racing on the pad, and I'm talking about the guys who are at the top of their game, know exactly what they're doing with the controller. This could be a good year for you, potentially. It's going to be no worse than F1 2019, I would say, that at the very least. So you guys are set for a good one. Those of you who are, you know, more casual with a controller and are just, you know, kind of struggling to play or be competitive in online game modes, the game might be slightly easier, potentially. So give it a go. I mean, there's the new steering assist, which I haven't tried yet. I might actually try that for a video and see how much of a difference that would make. That would have been a good idea for me to do that in said video, but I don't imagine a steering assist would be any good for a competitive game mode. But no, you can't even do it online. So what am I talking about? Never mind. Sorry about that. Controller, is it easy? Is it too easy? Is it hard? It's a bit of both, really. There is a small bit of softening with, I'd say, traction a little bit, which might help the top-end pad players. But overall, I think it is probably better to have it in than to take it away, simply for the casual guys who really do need that extra help. But you know, this is probably why we shouldn't have controller players in F1 esports, because then it would be a big issue when there's, you know, sponsorships or money on the line or whatever. It's good that F1 esports is still a wheel-only competition. But anyway, I think I'm deeping this a bit too much now. Like I said, lots of things can potentially and probably will change when we get to the full game, so I will leave it at that. But overall, I was able to get on the pace reasonably quickly, within a couple of hours, but the consistency for me is the big thing that will require a lot more time and dedication and commitment to be competitive how I was on the wheel. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to see plenty more racing game content. And let's pray that my wheel comes tomorrow and we can return to business as usual. Until then, it's goodbye.